Hello, hello, welcome.
Hi.
All right, this is Latifa of Latifa's Herbs. I'm Malcolm Saunders here from Light Cellar. We're going to be sharing, going to dive into this topic, why plant medicine? And I think you're going to get a lot from this conversation. Obviously, Latifa, being a medical herbalist, being someone deeply immersed in this world of plant medicine, especially using local plants from the wild, and her and I and Denis, and like people that are into this world, we get together, we have these conversations, and oftentimes we forget to kind of bring it back to those basics of why plant medicine, why is it so powerful, why are we so into it? And that's what we're going to be sharing here today. We're going to go through kind of the 3 E's that we just discovered, and we're going to lay out for you of why plant medicine. So welcome, Latifa. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Latifa is one of our instructors here at Light Cellar. Teaches a number of different courses all around plant medicine. And yeah, I've got a couple exciting ones coming up that we'll get to and we'll mention later in this interview. If at any time you got any comments, any questions below, just post them down below. And without further ado, let's get into why plant medicine. What do you see are some of the benefits of local plant medicine?
Well, the first E is that plant medicine is effective. And that means that it actually does work. So our bodies have evolved with plants and wild foods, and our body is designed to be able to break down those medicines, to utilize them, and to incorporate them as part of our body. And we respond well to those types of medicines. So there's that one aspect that we've evolved with, that complexity of complex chemicals interacting with our body. People often think because plant medicines are very gentle, they can be safe for children, for elders. They often can be used alongside medications or can support medications to make medications more effective. I mean, this can be a hot button issue when we're talking about antibiotic resistance, for example. Herbs can be combined to help ensure that the medicines that we take work more effectively because they have a broad spectrum of actions. Mm-hmm. But being gentle does not mean that it's not effective. So there's many different ways to look at and approach that effectiveness. So sometimes it means that herbal medicine needs to be taken in a preventative way. So you take herbs over a longer period of time, but to get effects that actually sort of transform your body or help your body reach optimal homeostasis, if you will. Sometimes our body always strives to be optimally healthy, but sometimes something happens, whether it's stress or exposure to chemicals or big life events, and many factors can happen that cause our body to kind of go off track, and it creates a new homeostasis, but that homeostasis might include skin rashes, for example, as a byproduct of that, right? Mm-hmm. And herbs, through gently over time, can help adjust the body to recognize, actually, I don't need to have such a strong inflammatory response against my own skin cells. That this has been a miscommunication somewhere, and the wires have been crossed. But over time, and with herbs, and we have to look at the whole spectrum of lifestyle and diet and all these kind of things, then the body can recalibrate. So herbs can help the body do that rather than just suppressing one particular symptom. So you're looking at a long-term approach to treatment or to prevention. So taking herbs to prevent us getting to the point where the immune system breaks down or the digestion breaks down, for example, or our stress is so extreme that we have a total burnout. So that's how one way herbs can be effective, but sometimes they're really just potent in acute instances. Those are often not herbs that we take on a daily basis because they're strong. They can sometimes be poisons, so there's always the fun, right. Plant poisons. Yeah. But I'm not going to tell you how to poison anyone. So
is that how you put it? Yeah.
That's the disclaimer, right? But these medicines can be really potent pain relievers, for example, or can be really strong herbs for acute anxieties. We're going to talk specifically about native plants, but some non-native plants come to mind, like famously kava kava, for example, is a really strong medicine for anxiety, and it is actually used as a recreational substance, a mind-altering substance in some ways. So these are potent medicines. I mean, I'm not going to go into marijuana. We're not talking about that. But it's a perfect example of a herb that people recognize as being really strong and really potent. But there's many thousands of plants that also have their own unique properties that can support us. Even something as simple as mint, the volatile oils have an immediately calming effect on the digestive system.
Right.
And many of you may have experienced that or probably have mint tea in your cupboard. And you can take that right away. That's an example of an immediate effective result that comes from herbal medicine.
Yeah, and we were chatting just before we got on as well, that idea of that herbs don't just have one action. We take mint as an example. Okay, there's a calming effect. There's also that digestive effect. Like there's so many actions to mint, and you can use the same plant for many different things.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely effective. All right.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Is there anything else you want to add on that?
Well, you know, I guess that's the other piece of it, is that there is this multifaceted way that plants work because they are containing multiple phytochemicals, plant chemicals that affect our body in complex ways. And of course, our body isn't just, we don't just have an isolated heart and an isolated stomach and an isolated bladder. They're all connected and they affect each other. So the beautiful aspect about herbs is we can use them for so many different health conditions because they are complex, and because by affecting one system like the lungs might affect the kidneys, for example. There's a connection within traditional medicine practices of those two organs. So there's that beautiful, I don't know how to frame that, just this wholeness, I guess, a wholeness that comes with you're taking one herb for to help with your lung congestion, but suddenly other aspects of the body are affected. I can't help but remembering, I won't say who it is for confidentiality, but someone was taking herbs for, I think it was bilberry, for their eyes, and they suddenly found that their hemorrhoids cleared up. They never expected it would work for that, but because that herb has those kind of actions, healing actions as well, that support microcirculation and vein health, and that's supported as well. So that's quite, they're like, that's amazing.
Yeah, bonus.
For the eyes. The hemorrhoids are gone. So, those are just ways that herbs are so complex.
Cool. So we're talking about why plant medicine, and we've just been touching upon, the number one reason, which is they are effective, in a gentle way. Sometimes, as you mentioned, you need to use that kind of shotgun approach, and there are herbs absolutely to use in acute situations. But you're talking about this approach of kind of a more gentle, long-term, complex, holistic incorporation and the effects they have on the body. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So next thing we want to talk about why plant medicine is this idea that is?
The ecological benefit of using plant medicine. So, of course, I think the environment is on many of our minds right now, especially with global tragedies happening worldwide. I mean, the fires in Australia is a perfectly good example of, I'm sure many of you are coming up at dinner conversations, like what's happening right now. And we do need to think about the environment in the future, and we are connected to the environment. So when I in particular love working with local wild plant medicines because it helps me connect to the landscape when I'm outside in nature. Not only do I get the emotional, spiritual, mental benefit of being outside and getting exercise and interacting with nature, which is amazing, I also become aware of the environment around me. I can see, this is what's happening. This is a development project that's being proposed in my favorite park. What can I do about that? Or, some people are still polluting or throwing garbage in this park. How can I support that? So we become a little bit more aware of what's happening just from being present.
Yeah.
But then we add on to that because we see plants not just as organisms that we observe, not just museum pieces. I often use that expression. We walk through nature. It's like being in a museum. Oh, don't touch anything.
Yeah. Stay on the trail.
I have nothing against conservation. I recognize the importance of that. We do need to protect wild spaces. But when we see those plants as friends and allies that we can harvest in places we're allowed to, or grow in our own gardens or communities, something I really hope that Calgarians take up the, what do you call it?
Take up the cause, the call.
Yeah, exactly, to do that so that that becomes more accessible, then we see a deeper value because we're not just seeing, this looks pretty, this flower is attractive. And obviously the wildlife, the pollinators and birds or bears and so forth are benefiting from these species, but I depend on this medicine because this medicine helps to keep my digestion working properly, or this helps with my skin condition, or this really calms my child, or this makes a wonderful bath, or this wonderful skin product, or it's really great for helping me heal wounds more quickly. So then there's that deeper sense of connection. There's a friendship, there's an allyship that happens, and I believe that the deepest level of stewardship that we can possibly have comes from a deep empathy and interdependence with the environment. And there's no better way to do that than to actually use, and I mean that in a non-exploitive way, in a really reciprocal, loving way, to utilize those plant medicines and have them become part of us. So
for sure. I mean, I think Michael Pollan in a lot of his books, and even the documentaries that are made from his books, kind of expresses that idea of that. If we take care of a species, like grow it, nurture it, like grass as an example, and he spins it in the sense of like how grass is maybe using us, right? Corn has used us to propagate itself, but that's part of that reciprocity, right? Like we'll maintain spaces where a particular variety and species grow, we care for it, etc., and we use it as well, right? And that exchange. So when I think about the ecological benefits of plant medicine, definitely there's that conservation piece, but also, like you say, taking it further in being that steward. And I would love to see, and you mentioned it, right? People taking that call of like beginning to plant, not only caring for the wild species, but beginning to nurture more of those, create more of those spaces, bring the native plants, into our urban environments in a much bigger way. And then also on the flip side too, a lot of modern medicine is actually very pollutive. And I don't want to put this out there like that I'm bashing it or saying like we shouldn't be doing it, but we need to be like super mindful. I mean, you hear about birth control in the water system, chemo drugs, right? Like just people peeing it out. Like it's not being talked about, but it's a massively pollutive factor in our environment as people take these pharmaceuticals, take these drugs, and then boom, like our body filters it just slightly, but then it's just going straight into the ecosystem and causing a lot of harm, whereas plant medicine doesn't have that.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the factory processes that produce those medicines. So we're not seeing that in Canada as far as I know, but countries like India, for example, that manufacture pharmaceutical drugs, huge environmental pollution as a result of of the processes involved in making pharmaceutical drugs. So it's not sustainable at the end of the day to continue polluting over and over again an environment. We need to find processes that are more environmentally friendly. But the most simple way for many of us can be just to change our philosophy and way of thinking about health, looking at it more holistic way and utilizing herbal medicines.
Yeah, production of, packaging of, right? All those things. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, and again, not to replace it, in its entirety, but there's so many areas where just a simple herb would serve someone just as well, or if not better, without all those kind of negative ecological factors and consequences. So great, we're working our way through kind of the three top reasons why plant medicine, really getting into it. So first one, we talked about it being effective. Second, we talked about the kind of ecological harmony and balance that it creates, stewardship, engagement. And this third one here, we're going to talk about how plant medicine is empowering.
Another beautiful aspect of herbal medicine that I truly love, because I think one of the top pillars of health that we forget about is community. And so when we are empowered in our health, we have the ability to not only take care of ourselves, but to take care of those around us. And so we can suddenly find ourselves able to navigate, critique, and even be outside of an institutionalized system that can at times that has been monetized. And that doesn't mean that there isn't wonderful benefit. I am not at all against conventional medicine systems, but there are aspects within that system that are politically driven, economically driven, that are exploitive environmentally, unfortunately, and they also the structure is hierarchical, and in the sense that the individual no longer has autonomy in the same way or understanding of their health. So
right.
If I share a really personal thing for me, one of the most revolutionary outcomes for me when I studied herbal medicine, and I studied in London, in England, and I did a pretty full-on program, and it was meant to be on par with like a medical doctor, hence the word medical herbalist, in terms of understanding the physiology of the body. And suddenly I could be critical of what my doctor, they're wonderful, but what they were telling me, because I knew about my health, and I'm suddenly realizing, why isn't the basic anatomy being taught in elementary schools? Why aren't kids being taught how their body works? Because we're totally blinded to how our body works. We cannot even make decisions for ourselves that are accurate. So the empowerment of knowledge is so amazing. Even before you bring in herbs into it, just understanding how your body works and how the different systems are interconnected and the different ways you can treat yourself so simply. I mean, I almost never go to the doctor or the pharmacy, or I often can just go into my kitchen and treat myself for a whole range of conditions because I have that knowledge around me, and it's so empowering. And then that I could bring to my family. So now my family depends upon my medicine, my partner, my nieces, my nephews. Latifa, where's our annual immune tonic? You know, this is what's been keeping us healthy all year, and extending out into the Light Cellar community and the folks I get to teach, wonderful folks I meet and teach here. It's amazing, and they tell me, you know, thank you for this medicine, that this has kept me healthy. But it's that wonderful sense of connecting, that when you take on the responsibility of learning a little bit, no one says you have to be a practitioner, but then that you're supporting your community. And there's so many processes within that I really, really love, like you know, people getting together, processing herbs together, harvesting herbs together, growing herbs together, sharing knowledge, sharing healing wisdom. We have so much internal wisdom. At the end of the day, herbal medicine supports the fact that the body knows best. Our body truly does know best.
Yeah.
And so it's that organic wisdom, that organic trust, that trust in nature, and that's what ultimately is one of the most empowering things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love what you're sharing, and I was just thinking about you're talking about, you know, empowerment and how, you know, the world of herbs led you. And though you did some formal study and training, for a lot of people to learn about their health, you know, like through herbalism, is a very easy entry level, right, to get into. No one just kind of dabbles in, you know, modern medicine. But there's so many people that really do dabble in the world of herbs or dabble into the world of nutrition, and it's like it's an accessible path. It's because it's always been there. It's been the people's medicine, and it's a way to get in, a doorway in, to have that own personal health empowerment, beginning to learn about, like you say, like, okay, how does my body work? How do I take care of it? Yeah, very kind of accessible entry-level path that we can all venture down.
Yeah, I mean, if I can, nice to have an example of, you know, like UTI is a really great example that is so often easily and effectively, very effectively treated by herbal medicine, but people's first protocol is antibiotics, which leads you down a cascade of side effects, right? Because we're talking about drug resistance. You may then become resistant to that drug and it's not working. You can have hidden infections that remain, that you get chronic UTI infections. And UTIs, when I suddenly had the power and the knowledge to go outside, pick some leaves, drink a tea, cure myself of what would be a really irritating situation, that when I would have been disempowered, I would have had to go to the doctor, I would have had to get some tablets or some antibiotics. I had no idea what to do. I didn't know how simple it was to treat a UTI, and that's one of those fundamental foundational things that I think the vast majority of cases you can easily treat from home, unless there are severities and complications, but it can be so simple as that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So herbal medicine, why plant medicine? It's effective, it's ecological, and it's empowering. So this is an invitation for you guys, whatever stage of the journey, if you're brand new or you're 10 steps or 1,000 steps down this, to join us, like create that community like Latifa's talking about. Obviously, Light Cellar is a great hub. Connect with Latifa's Herbs. You can follow her on Facebook and on Instagram, and she does have a number of classes that she'll be doing here coming up. Let me just go through those. So Wild Winter Plants for Women's Health, that's Saturday, February 8th from 1 till 4. So specific focuses, right? You know, if you're a woman, you want to learn about wild plants for your health and what plants are available in the winter. There's always something every time of year. We were talking with Sasha Kelly-Voda yesterday about seasonal eating and tuning in with the seasons and using what's around and available to us. That's going to be an amazing class. Then you're going to go and do wild winter plants for optimal digestion. That's Thursday, February 20th, 6 to 9. And then there's one more, wild winter plants for stress and anxiety, Sunday, March 8th. So really highly encourage you, if you're feeling the call of plant medicine, again, whatever stage down the journey that you are, you've got a real expert here, Latifa, who's studied it, not only at kind of a formal university kind of technical level, but also just that everyday level of the people's medicine and literally being out with the plants, and has been growing her knowledge and her wisdom for years. And thanks for being willing to share that. That's the other thing that happens with this, right? Is there is that community of sharing of knowledge, because it's, you know, how effective it is and how much you want to share, and something that we should all have access to. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. If you got any comments, questions, just post them down below.